Hi, my name's Darren'S. I'm a Community Psychiatric Nurse from Bassett Law. In this short video I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experiences with mental health, and a little bit later on speak a little bit more about what's available out there for people and how to access it. So, when I was 25 years old, I'd had pretty much usual upbringing and everything, but I had a significant to me a relationship breakdown, and it was a thing that I just didn't seem to be able to come back from, really. I felt really down, really low in my mood. My motivation went. I didn't want to face anybody, whether it was family, whether it was friends, and I just took myself to my bedroom. At the time I was still living at home with parents, and I was very sort of poorly. Not that I recognised it so much at the time. Eventually, probably 3 months of being off work, I was sort of sick of myself, really. I wanted to know what was happening, why it was happening. So I did go and visit my GP. He spoke to me, he did a few sort of paperwork exercises with me to work out how depressed he thought I was. At that point he discussed the possibility of medication and tried me on Prozac. Shortly after that, I started using the medication, but very quickly I realised that the medication didn't suit me very well. The only way I can sort of explain the feeling was that I knew I was standing perfectly still. I felt like I was almost vibrating in my own body, in my own shell. And soon after that I felt nauseous, started sleeping more, but having increased nightmares, very graphic, very distressing nightmares. So at that point I decided to take myself off the medication. At that point I didn't consult with my doctor. I just stopped and then decided, if I'm going to beat this feeling, I was going to do it myself on my own terms. Went back to my usual, playing a lot of sport, football, cricket, that kind of thing. Interacting more with my friends who I'd sort of neglected for several months. And doing the social thing again. And I took up running, only very briefly, but I took up running for a couple of months. As time went on, I felt a little bit more confident, a little bit more happier about myself, and decided to go back to work. They supported me very well. I was working as a support worker in a mental health unit at that time, and they gave me a phased return and let me return to work. Eventually I got back to what I deemed to be some kind of normality. So to further down the line, I'm 43 now. Around 3 years ago, I was in a road traffic accident with my wife and my children in the car. With that, it sort of brought about a lot of the old feelings again. It was mainly me blaming myself, actually. Was this something I did to cause that? Having sort of flashbacks during the day of what actually happened on the day. So everything seemed to go in slow motion. Very quickly that descended into not sleeping, and having very just lethargic days where I couldn't be motivated to walk, to talk. I began, unintentionally, I believe, push the people away who were closest to me, which was my wife and my 6-year-old daughter as was then. A 14-year-old boy. I was quite agitated, quite angry, blamed myself for pretty much everything that was going on. In the meantime, by this time I qualified as a nurse and was working as a CPN in the local area, Bassett Law. And I was going to work every day. The only way I can describe that is putting almost like an emotional mask on. As far as people around me was concerned, I had no issues, no problems. I'm usually the man in the team that's telling the jokes and having the crack with people. Nobody really thought there was an issue. But as time went on, the strain sort of became more apparent. I was a bit more snappy, obviously not able to cope with things at work as much as I had been before, which unfortunately led to a senior colleague believing that was more intentional, that I was sort of being lazy and things like that at work, which wasn't the case. And that sort of started a chain of events around workplace bullying. I kept trying to keep the mask on. I didn't want people to know. I was sort of ashamed that I was feeling low. That I was a cloth worker, a big 6'9" man that obviously had got this weakness, this feeling about him that was intolerable at times. I put so much effort into my work day that I get home at night and within 5 minutes my eyes would be closed on the sofa. I wasn't always asleep. I was mainly trying to avoid family, avoid my daughter, avoid my wife, my son, because I just couldn't cope with anything else in my day. That went on for quite some time, until I went out on a home visit with a colleague, Nicola, bless her, and she had noticed. She didn't want to say anything. She says that she had a lot of respect for me, how I worked, things like that, and she didn't feel it was her place to say something. But this one particular week, she could see that I'd gone from being, holding things together quite well to being literally tearful when just trying to have a normal conversation with another human being, a patient, a colleague, anybody really, her. And she said, right, I'm taking you to your GP and I'm going to go in there with you and we're going to have a conversation. So at that point, we did that. I didn't argue, I didn't do anything, I had no motivation to. I saw the GP again. It became very obvious to him very quickly again that I was low. And he started me on citalopram for a period of time. And that sort of lifted me quite quickly. I seemed okay for a while, and it appeared that as I was feeling better, the workplace bullying, it was either disappearing or it was my perception of what was happening at work, and I couldn't really tell or know which it was. I didn't know whether the bullying was my perception of what people were saying, or whether it was the illness giving me the negative thoughts and making me very defensive, I suppose. So yeah, that sort of settled for a period of about 8 months, and then all of a sudden I sort of became overwhelmingly just overwhelmed with negative emotion, thoughts that my wife, my family would be better off in this world without me, and I'd made my mind up really that that was it, I was going to end my life. I made my plan. My plan was to drive at speed into a wall in my car, I got it planned, I got the day planned, I got the time planned, down to every last detail really. On the day, I lacked the motivation to actually go through with it at that point, and felt really, really guilty about that, and felt useless, and felt even more burdensome, I suppose, on the family. And that, was a point of, I don't know whether it was reflection or a point of some kind of cathartic moment where it was either you plan it again, you try again, or you go and find some help. I opted for the latter, so I went back to see my GP. Clearly the citalopram, which I was taking consistently, had stopped doing what it was supposed to do. So then I had to go through this really horrendous sort of 2-week period of being titrated down off the citalopram before I could be started on a new antidepressant. And during that 2-week period, that was probably the lowest I've ever felt. I pushed everybody away. I would disappear without warning, away from my family, to be in my own thoughts because I just could not stand the hustle and bustle around me. All of work, I'd disappear to secluded places to walk, not to do anything, but obviously doing that kind of thing really put my relationship under stress because I wasn't talking about how I was feeling, didn't know what I was planning to do. But luckily I got through it, I got through that period, started on sertraline, another antidepressant, and that's where I remain now really. I, via the GP, was referred into secondary mental health services, and obviously being a member of staff in the local area's secondary mental health services, I couldn't access that service. I suppose I could have done it if I wanted to, but obviously I didn't really want to see my colleagues and be pouring open my heart and soul to people I know and acquaintances around the workplace. So I was referred into Bolsover, Chesterfield area services, saw a psychiatrist, accessed probably about 15 or 16 weeks worth of counselling, therapy, talking based, and I returned to work back in December 2017. I think I've had a couple of brief periods of overwhelm since then, but generally things are going really well. Relationship at home, family wise, very good, really good. My relationships at work, there's no issues there. We're like a small family actually within the LMHT where I work. We all get on. I'm back to being that workplace person that tells the jokes and basically is just there for the banter really. And the work itself, very manageable, very challenging, very manageable. And I couldn't be more happier that I did access services when I did, because looking back, it feels like it was a flip of the coin style decision, and I chose the right one as it turned out, but I could have easily gone the other way, and that still to this day sort of scares me a little bit, I think. But yeah, that's my story within mental health, and obviously the fight continues really. It never fully goes away. There's always a reminder at work, obviously working in a mental health team, but it's there, it's part of my life. You choose to live with it, and you choose to do your best with it, and that's all you can do. You can only do the best what's for you and the best for the people around you. And if I could say anything that I would have done to change my circumstances, is that I just wish that I'd have been more open and honest, speaking to the people around me rather than bottling it all up making my plan. You know, maybe I haven't been as unwell and as self-tormented, if you like, for as long as I was. But you live and learn. Now I openly talk about my condition at home, with children, my wife. I also have gone on record at work and asked for anybody to approach me if they feel there's anything changing within my personality, if they believe anything's going on around me that's making me react differently that I've not noticed yet, and they've agreed to do that. So that is the plan, that is my working plan, to try and keep right at work, for setting up an early warning sign for myself, really, to catch things early and get the treatment and the help I need when I need it. Because, you know, these kind of illnesses are recurrent over periods of time, and you know, these things you've got to do. You've got to do these for yourself before anything terrible happens, really. Thank you for listening.